the way you love people shows how much you love their freedom more than you love the person. You have to love the freedom more than you love the person, which is the way Christ loved me. Yes, all along we had homosexual people, but now we are promoting homosexuality. So it's getting crowded with those situations, and transsexuality the same.
Hello, Maria.
Hello.
Thank you very much for coming onto my podcast.
Thank you, Tammy, for inviting me. Really honored.
Well, we met over dinner.
Yeah.
And I guess we were in Lisbon. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We had
yeah, we were in Lisbon. I was trying to remember exactly what city we were in because we were in so many.
Yeah. Just before your husband had a presentation on the.
That's right. Oh, yeah, that was just before the evening event.
The big room,
so you sat across from him, and I'd like you to introduce yourself to people and tell them what what you do in your work and what you've been up to. And you asked me if I would read the Theology of the Body, and then suggested that I read an introduction to it, which I did, and I found it fascinating. But I'd like to know why you asked me to read that. So 2 things: introduce yourself, and we'll start with the Theology of the Body.
Okay. So I am 64. I am married. I have 3 children. The oldest one is already married and has 4 little ones. So I am a grandmother of 4 for the moment. I have still 2 daughters living with us. And I work as a psychologist. And this is the work I call work because it's where I earn money, But I do lots of other things, which are here in Portugal are not paid. And one of the things I do is related to theology of the body. I have I created a kind of association. I don't know how you say it. It's a non-profit something. And the goal is to promote theology of the body here in Portugal. And I also have study groups. Occasionally we read together. Since the pandemic, we do it online, but we have been doing it since 2010, more or less. Small groups, we read the books together and we comment on them and all that. And the other thing I am also is one of my jobs or works is related with Rachel Vineyard. I don't know if you ever heard about that. Rachel Vineyard well, as we do it here in Portugal, it's a retreat for women and men that have been engaged in the voluntary abortion. And so they need to recover peace and reconciliation and all that. So this is one of the things I also do as occasionally. And then this work with pro-life people and freedom of expression also. I am founder of another association called Association for the Defense of Freedom. It's a kind of ADF. It's based on ADF, but here in Portugal, Alliance Defending Freedom.
I don't know what ADF is. Okay. What's ADF?
Alliance Defending Freedom.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is freedom of speech, yes?
This is freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of education, and freedom of thought, freedom of religion, all the freedoms that are going through so much trouble right now. So we have a large group of lawyers that work with us and work with this association, and they have their goal is to defend and these people against the lawsuits, or to initiate lawsuits against schools or
Right.
whatever. And this started because I myself had problems with the media and with my psychologist order. I don't know how do you say this is the College of Psychologists. Okay.
The College of Psychologists, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I had problems with them because I don't follow their all their rules. I mean, the ones that I think that are not respectful of human rights, and so they started
Right.
persecuting me. And also, I had a problem on media, on television. They made a program trying to crucify me, saying that I was making conversion therapies, which is absolutely not true. But they just wanted someone to speak about the issue. In fact, this week in Portugal, our parliament is approving the therapy ban for people that don't that use therapies that are not non-affirmative of homosexuality or transsexuality identities.
So you're
Criminalizing.
having now criminalizing people, therapists
Yeah,
who
yeah,
don't affirm.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
and that's gone through.
That's gone through. That I'm not sure if it's gone through this week or it will in a few days, but it's going to be. Well, that is a problem because, of course, we don't do conversion therapies, but we help people that feel same-sex
Yeah.
attracted and unwanted same-sex attraction, and we help people understand why they feel that and go into the emotional roots of the things, and that is what they don't want us to do. So it is a problem because
Right.
people need to be helped. And for this, the theology of the body has helped me a lot to understand the person, to understand what is the person as God created it, and what is the purpose of our body, and how it is linked to. I mean, the body reveals the person. We cannot separate that. So it helped me a lot in my work as a psychologist, and specifically on this kind of things with this gender ideology and all that. I've been studying theology of the body since 2003, and also teaching because it's something I always thought it was so important for me. It was part of my conversion that I cannot keep it to myself. I have to give it away also. And so I don't remember the
So,
reason why I asked you to read the Theology of the Body, but
well,
maybe
probably
I
because
asked you, did you already, do you know this? Because that's one of my passions.
okay. Well, I didn't know it, but I'm very grateful to know it now. So
Good.
let's start with a couple of questions that I have. First of all, you said you have study groups and you read. What do you read there in your study groups?
Okay. First, I used to
You
read,
saw you. Is it associated with the theology of the body?
yeah, it's always books related to theology of the body, whether the catechesis,
Okay.
okay, or some other book like Love and Responsibility from Karol Wojtyła, or Men and Women Are from Eden from Mary Healy, or other books related to theology of the body.
Okay. Well, those are some books I should probably get the names of, but we can do that later.
Okay,
And we can link them to the podcast so that people, if they want to do broad
okay,
reading, they can find the narratives for that.
okay,
And and then you talked about recovering from abortion, this pro-life.
yeah,
Are you still doing that kind of work?
yeah.
Yeah,
That's the Rachel
and
Vineyard
that
work. Yeah,
also and that's also in the theology of the body, I imagine, because
yeah.
that's talked about in the book.
Yeah, but yeah, the book, the Theology of the Body, is mainly about love and life, right? So it's how human love is supposed to image God's love, and God's love is about love and life. So everything that is related to love and life can get in. But I started Rachel Vineyard a long time before Theology of the Body, and it's a more of a clinic work if you want, because what I do is I help people heal from post-abortion traumatic syndrome. So
Very
it's
interesting. So this is
yes,
the book that I read. I read The Theology of the Body, but it
okay, from
was
Christopher West.
for
Yeah,
beginners.
yeah,
Christopher West, who's
yeah,
very well known,
yeah, yeah,
and Maria suggested that for me. And
yeah.
I found that it's easy to read.
Mm-hmm.
It's very deep because it goes into all kinds of issues, and one of them being abortion. But that's just, that's just part of the narrative of what it means to what it means to have a body,
Yeah,
and to also have a relationship with God, and how to, I guess, how to come to terms with the mistakes we make along the way,
yeah,
right? And how to get back to God after we've made the mistakes that make us
mm-hmm.
uncomfortable.
Yeah,
And so, if you're uncomfortable, you've made a mistake, I think.
yeah,
What do you think of
absolutely.
that?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's a very good sign when you understand you have a problem. Unfortunately, I don't want to be a prophet of doom, but we have to be realistic. And unfortunately, many people don't understand they have a problem. They just go on living and putting pleasure over pleasure to get rid of whatever discomfort they feel. But it's very important, and that is
Right.
actually a part of
Right.
my work, to help people ask themselves, how do you feel with that? Do you feel comfortable with that? What are your goals in life? What do you want to do with your life? Does that fit in or not? What can you do different? That's part of my work as a psychologist. I am also a logotherapist. So that's, as a psychology, I work with logotherapy. I don't know if you've
And
heard
so
about
in
it.
logo, and so how would logotherapy work in the
Yeah.
same situation?
Logotherapy is with asking those questions I just did, like how you can
Okay.
put your freedom to work, recognize you have freedom and you have a responsibility, and how to put that to work.
I really like the way that the author, it's hard to tell. He does say when he's talking about what Pope John Paul II wrote, but he talks about freedom, and he says, "What does the human person have that animals don't?"
Yeah,
He
precisely.
says, "What's that? That's
Yeah,
freedom."
yeah,
And he walks it. So maybe, I don't know if you know that argument, but that's a great argument about the fact that man in the Bible, in the beginning, he is born alone. I really liked the argument he made going forward, that he's alone, that he names all the animals, then he names himself, and that he's alone, and that he I think then it says that he's inspired, that makes him not an object but a person, or but a
that
subject, not an object but a
a
subject.
subject.
That's
Yeah,
so fascinating, that
yeah,
argument. Does that come from the theology of the body? Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
definitely
It's
yes.
well
Because
thought through.
yeah, because John Paul II has had his philosophy, his view of man, very well developed before writing the theology of the body. And you can see that in two books, Love and Responsibility and Person and Act. He really gave very big importance to freedom, to self-determination, which is not the same way many of us in our world understand freedom. It's not a freedom to do what I want, but it's a kind of freedom to 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 search for the good,
Yeah.
the good
And to make
being
a choice
God.
between the good choice and the bad choice.
Yeah,
Always.
yeah,
That's what you're
always,
making. Yeah.
always, yes. So, and that's it, I think that our world had a very a time of very good inspiration because we had since Pope John Paul II, and before him we had other philosophers and thinkers, and Viktor Frankl, for instance, and Monsignor Scrivin. There's a series of men that were really inspired because when we look at what they wrote, we see so many uh, union points, and on
Mm-hmm.
this way to look at men, this anthropology. So it has been very useful for me to have studied logotherapy and then theology of the body because it goes together very well. Logotherapy doesn't speak about
Ah,
God,
right.
but it speaks a lot about freedom and the freedom to choose
Mm-hmm.
your attitude when you have a certain reality in face of you. You can change reality, but you can change the way you look at it and what you do about it. And it has been
Mm-hmm.
very
Mm-hmm.
important. This you cannot change reality. And on the theology of the body, you see that reality is nature. For John Paul II, reality
Right.
is nature, and you cannot change your nature. You have, in a way, you have to
Mm-hmm.
obey to your nature as a person, but you can choose
So
how
that would
to
be
do
the
it.
body. So the body's expression of what you've
Yeah,
done or what you've thought or
yeah,
is
precisely.
reality. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
precisely. And this is something that
And so then
lacks.
someone who has had an abortion, then you're talking about the action that they took with their bodies and that is the reality. But there's a disconnect. But if they're feeling uncomfortable, there's a disconnect between what they would be inspired to do and what
Yeah,
actually happened.
because
And how do you find a connection again for them if they've become disconnected that way?
yeah, well, it's in, the disconnection is not recognizing that the baby is another person. That's why
Right.
it's right. So what we do is we work on that, and we work on the from the discomfort they feel to the realization that there was another person. And when someone dies, we have to make a mourning period. So we do that. We help them do that. And we help them give the baby, recognizing that the baby lives in God, uh, giving God the baby back. So the first thing that is very
Right.
important is reestablish the connection with the baby. When they come to see me before the retreat, because I like to know them, and there's one thing I always tell them: you are a mother or you are a father, and they get surprised because they think, and you have your baby is alive in heaven, and you can now start speaking with your baby and asking your baby's help to go through the process. And this is something that helps a lot. In fact, we think that the baby helps the to solve the problem.
Oh, that's a very good idea. You know, when my mother passed away, that was in 2007. My daughter grew up. She had some health issues, serious health issues, and I used to pray to my mother to intervene and to help us. And so I never thought of that as being a possibility for a baby that's been aborted. I never thought of that, but that could actually be really
Yeah,
profound, I
yeah,
imagine.
yeah. It's the main
Ah,
mission of that baby is to help the mother reconciliate and have peace, and through recognition of his life or its life, it's his mission.
yeah, and find a better way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very interesting. So does this? So people they lose their mothers and they lose their fathers and they lose siblings and they lose spouses. Do you deal with those people as well?
Yeah, I can deal with
all the
them
loss?
on my set as a psychologist, not
Right.
specifically
And would
like with Rachel
no,
Vineyard. It's only
it
for
would be
abortion.
different.
Yeah, it would be different, but
Right, right.
it's also because here the difference is that when you lose a baby that was not born, you will find it is very difficult to mourn and to cry, and because people don't understand that. People say, oh, it was just a bit, or you wanted it, why are you sad? You did it because you wanted. And so people find they need a place where they can reconnect to the baby and have a time to mourn. And when you lose someone at an older age, you have the means to make the mourning rituals and all that, right? So it's a bit
Right.
easier.
Mm-hmm.
So what we
Mm-hmm.
try is
Mm-hmm.
to help people do what in a normal way they could do if it was a visible baby,
Do you
like a
have
baby.
in Canada we have since 2014 I believe we've had medically assisted dying, and that those laws have been changing and transforming, and next year they're thinking of broadening the scope of it and making it br- more broad. People who
Yeah,
have mental illness or are mature children, which is, well, as far as I'm concerned, that's,
it's
that's
terrible.
disturbing to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I don't know if that kind of thing is going on in
Yeah, we
Portugal,
had
is it?
it. Yeah, the parliament approved it this year, but not
Okay.
completely. Not completely, because it should be completed, the approval this year. But then we had a problem here with our with the party that is ruling, and the parliament was suspended, I think, and so this
Ah,
law is transferred for the next government, and we don't know what will
I
come.
see.
But
Right,
people,
right, right.
it will come, I think. Well, we try to do everything we can, but the governments are very liberal about this, and the parties are very liberal
Mm-hmm.
about this. And so, it's what happens in all woke ideology. The
What do you
emotions,
think Pope John Paul would say about it?
of course, he would say no. And he
He would
said
say no.
he said it on his document Evangelium Vitae. He yeah, Evangelium Vitae. He spoke. He wrote a lot about everything related to life, since the first the start of life to the natural end of life. We have no right
Mm-hmm.
to do God's job. No, we can't do it. And of course, it always starts with something that's because people are suffering so much, and we
Yeah,
are very
yeah.
bad because we don't understand the suffering of the others. It always starts like this. But then, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
that's what was going on in your country. It goes like a, yeah, they try to change a little bit of the law to make it broader. And in some countries, they already kill young people, children, with 9 years old.
I read
It's
a book,
incredible.
or I'm reading another book that's about mind mind control. Really, it's about
Yeah.
mind control. And he was a military man who wrote it. He was a yeah, he was a military man, and he wrote this. And he said that the first thing you do is there's three D's. There's deny, debate, and demand. And he said at first, when you say something like medically assisted dying, everybody says, "Oh, no, 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 no." Like that's not a good idea. That's not a good idea. But then they talk about it. Then they talk about it, and then they debate about it. And if you're debating something, then you're considering it because you're
Yeah,
in the
of
debate,
course.
right?
Yeah,
So it gets you, and everything is like this.
yeah,
The vaccines at first, oh, we won't make you take a vaccine. That's not going to happen. But then, well, let's discuss how important these vaccines are, and maybe, and how
Yeah.
many people should be taking them, and all of that. So then they debate it, and then the next thing comes, well, we'll demand that you do it. And by the time you've listened to it enough, you start to get used to the idea. And so these ideas are, we have to be so careful and
Yeah.
so aware of what we're looking at and what we're listening to, because even just the initial conversation about it is starting to change our minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
I didn't
completely
I
true.
didn't
Yeah.
really think about it,
Yeah.
but I understand that.
The other day, that baby that was killed in Italy, in London, because the hospital didn't let the parents. Indy was the name of the baby, Indy, and
Right.
our association for freedom wanted to write something about that and put it on social media. And at a certain point, there was one of them that was writing, because every parent has the right to choose how the baby dies. And I said, no, that's their language. We go after that because we don't have conscience, because we just don't understand. It's so instinctive. We have to be very alert not to go after that language,
Yes.
right? Yeah. And one other
Yes.
thing that
That's
happens
right.
besides starting to debate is starting to influence the people's mind with the scientific talk, like
Right.
let's make a congress to see, or to see how this problem appeared in some time on the universe, on the world, and some, and if you started bombarding people with scientific things, people think it's true. And what happens is
Yeah.
that true
Yeah.
science is not allowed anymore. True science,
What do you mean?
yeah, well, like this therapy ban that they are trying to do, and also the problem of the post-abortion syndrome. We cannot find means, money, to make real science, because the money goes only to whatever they want. You
Yeah.
see, and
Creating
with
clinics.
yeah,
Yeah.
and for instance, when you see, I was just a few 1 month ago, more or less, in a congress in Poland, and we were precisely debating this freedom, therapeutic and counseling choice, that the person has the right to have a therapist that has the same mind view, the same that's like-minded, so that they can be totally confident, right? Um, and they showed us a lot of scientific studies that were full of flaws, to make people believe in whatever they want, like
Right,
it's
because there
normal.
are all kinds of scientific papers written. There
Yeah,
are
yeah,
papers at the highest level, and there's papers at the lowest level. And
yeah,
so you can sway people's
yeah.
ideas just by choosing what
And
message you're going to.
what
Yeah.
makes me more, I don't want to say the word angry, but unfortunately, well, I'm a sinner, so I get angry with this. For instance, for this thing of being with same-sex attraction, I don't like to say being homosexual, because I think we are. This is not an identity. Our sexual orientation is not an identity. Identity is being a man or a
No.
woman. Okay, and that I learned from theology of the body. But what the world says is that you can choose your identity according to your sexual preferences, and so you can be whatever you want to be. And there is no way Catholic or Christian anthropology can say the same. But you know that at this moment, there are many people Christian people that are starting to think, maybe it's true. Maybe some
Right.
people, right. So, and that's really, it makes me, but how can they say that if they have the church teaching about body and soul being inseparable? And when you die, your soul will be, and your body in the future will be recognized by God as the same that was born. So it's so sad to have people eluded or deluded. I don't know how to say it. No, living in
Deluded.
some, yeah, deluded, living in some kind of make believe world. Just, I don't know. It really makes me really angry about this, and sorry for them. Sorry, because I want to help them, and our governments are not letting us help. So I think we really should.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well, here
really.
you are talking to me, so this is a good idea. We'll talk. We'll talk now and get the word out. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, what can happen that hasn't happened before? I can have another lawsuit because they say that as a
That's right.
psychologist.
So, tell me a little bit of what
Yeah,
happened with the college when the college came after you.
yeah. Well,
How
what
did
happened
that
was
play
that,
out?
yeah. Well, I was interviewed by a Christian magazine called Christian Family. And
Yeah.
the journalist was a very nice girl, and she asked me what I think about same-sex attraction and all that. And then in the end, she tells me, "What would you say to a family, a parent or a mother that has a son or a daughter with same-sex attraction?" And I answer, first of all, they have to love him very, very much. And they have to be sure that the son feels loved. This is the most important. For instance, and I said this, you don't stop loving a son if he has a kind of addiction, drug addiction. So this little thing I said, this comparison I made was in the attitude of the parents towards the problem of the child. I was not comparing anything else. They said I was comparing being homosexual to being a drug addict. So
Right.
there was a list of psychologists. They wanted to say, get me out of the profession because I was a terrible person. And so this is the first
Yeah.
lawsuit I
Yeah.
had. Okay. And it's still going on.
It's still going on. Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
because they decided to apply a punishment, which would be to be publicly reprimanded by the order, by the college, on their website, like crucified online, like that. So my
Yeah. Right.
lawyers,
Public. Yeah. That's the
yeah,
same thing they want to do with Jordan is
yeah,
publicize it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's more or less the same. Yeah. But Jordan is much more important than I am, and has much more studies, and is professor at the university and all that. This was just a little magazine I commented. Really, it was. But the thing is, they want us to be quiet, right? The other thing was, at one day I had a patient coming to my practice and saying that he was very unhappy because he felt same-sex attraction, and he was Catholic, and he didn't know how to conciliate both things, and he was very nervous and all that. And he came 3 times asking all kinds of questions about the catechism and what the church says, and please find me a priest. I need to talk to a priest, and please find me a psychiatrist because I am very anxious. I can't stand all this anxiety and all that. So I found him a priest. I found him a psychiatrist. And I even told him that I had at that moment a group with people with same-sex attraction at the parish, which is nothing from my clinical job. But if he wanted to go there and to see if he would feel nice, well, comfortable with that. Well, do you know what he did? He recorded everything, of course.
Oh.
I think he had a small camera, like in a button or
Yeah.
something. Well, he recorded
Oh, yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Could be.
Yeah. And then he gave it to the television channel. And one
Yeah.
day I received a message, a phone call from a journalist saying that there was going to be a program in which my name was going to be talked about. So they would like me to be there. And she wouldn't tell me what it is. And I said,
Right.
yes, I'll go.
Wow.
I had no idea. During the day, there were lots of publicity on the television. Don't forget to see tonight the program about a network of priests, psychiatrists, and psychologists that are trying to convert homosexual people. Convert is to change them into well,
Right.
you know. So that was the name of the program. And I started to understand what I was going for. I spoke with the priest because they showed small parts of the report, the news they made, right? So there were this talk with the priest, and I told the priest he was not in Portugal, and I said, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but we are in this trouble with the television, so be aware. And I know they didn't identify the priest, but his voice was enough for people to identify him. And they didn't identify the psychiatrist. They only they only showed a part of his office, but they didn't say where it was. He recognized it, only he. And as for me, I was there, so she attacked me in public.
Yeah. Oh,
And
wow.
so I just told her, I
Wow.
recognized the voice of the man because he appeared like an image, a shadow, but his voice was recognizable. And I saw, I said, wait, that man was in my practice, in my office, and he spoke with me, and what's going on here? So I just told her, look,
Wow. That must have been such a surprise.
yeah, well, yeah, it was. I never thought this could happen to anyone, really. And I told her
Right. Right.
on the television, I told her, I just came here to tell you that you did something terrible and unthinkable and unforgivable, and this is not a way to work. And so I just went on over her telling this and that, very assertive. And after telling you this, I have nothing more to say, so I'm leaving. And I stood up and went away. So the program had to finish. She had another psychiatrist, psychiatrist there, and a doctor from the College of Doctors who didn't know exactly what to say because he was a bit surprised also. And the other doctor is someone I already know, and she is a bit, well, I don't like to say this, but I know she's a bit unstable. And she asked me, but why do you say you are Catholic? What does that mean? What do you think that's important on your practice if you are Catholic or not Catholic? And that's the only question I really answered, because I said, of course it is important. I am Catholic, and that changes the way I see people and I see the world. So of course it is important. And then I went again back to the journalist, and I kept on saying that she will hear from my lawyers and all that. And I got up and went away. My son was at the car waiting for me. And when I got in the car, I started crying. I got all the tension. So after that, my lawyers made put a lawsuit against the journalist, against the television, and against the director of the television at the time, and it's still going on. I know that this man went to my practice
Yes.
because he had a previous relationship with another man that came to me
Uh-huh.
telling me that he had same-sex attraction, but he has no longer, and wanted to be of use for me as give testimony, whatever. And he wanted to speak with our cardinal from the diocese, and all that. And he actually helped me making a website we have, which is Livres para Amar, Free to Love. And the other one was so angry that he came to me, that he called him and told him, you know what I did to Maria José? That's all because I wanted to show how much I love you. So you see how they are twisted.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad because some of they are good people. They look for the same we look. They search, the heart searches for the same our heart searches. And then they mixed everything. Sometimes we all mix a bit, right? We all go looking for God in places we shouldn't go. But they suffer so much. And they
Yeah.
really, and they spoil our family. Did you see I don't know if it goes on your country. We have a Vodafone, you know? It's
I don't
a,
know.
okay. It's a internet service provider. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they made a Christmas announcement, a Christmas publicity, and it's all about this new world and these new kinds of families. It's a boy that comes home for Christmas with his boyfriend. Hello, this is my boyfriend. Hello, family, this is my boyfriend. And the grandmother looks at him, and she started thinking about her past. And we understand that she also had a girlfriend, but the world was so mean
Oh, I
that she
see.
was not accepted. So she thinks all about
I
that,
see.
and she sends a message to the woman, and the woman responds. And then she goes to the grandson and gives him a big hug and tells him, "I'm so proud of you." So that's the Christmas postcard from this company, you know. It's so sad.
Well, in Canada, the Christmas message is that Christmas is racist.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
Christmas is racist, and we shouldn't even be
Yeah.
celebrating Christmas
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So that's the Canadian message.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
It's so sad. After all, Christmas is
Well,
from
it's not
Christ.
it's not surprising, but it's not surprising though, is it? With all the other trouble, that
No,
that's
no,
not
no, no,
happening too.
no. It's not
It's
surprising, but every time I think about that, I am surprised. I'm surprised,
right,
not that I didn't expect it,
right.
but it goes it goes increasingly bad. Right? So each time we
Yeah.
have a worse thing happening, like, I don't know. And people don't understand that they can change this if they vote, or if they go into politics, or they go into political action, instead of being asleep and doing nothing. Because we have that power. We have the power to change things. We can make associations. We can go to, it's very difficult because they cancel us, as you know. But
Yeah.
your husband found a way to be heard. So he is still heard. You are
Yeah,
heard.
he did.
You are heard. You
So
have this
far.
podcast, right?
So far, yeah.
So
But
there
there
are
are ways.
ways. There are ways. So when I organize a Theology of the Body weekend, I know that it can be complicated, and because we talk about theology of the body, and these things are normally attached, especially on the questions people make. People make lots of questions about gender ideology. Although the weekend
Right.
is
And
not
it's an
about that.
appropriate place to ask those
It
questions,
is.
right?
Yeah,
It's
it
an
is.
appropriate,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's understandable that they want to know more, and they ask it, that they are very confused by what media says and what school says and all that. So they have to have those places where they can be, where they can trust people
So
and
if a
ask those
so if
things.
a if so if say a parent brings their daughter who's been told at school to choose a different pronoun, and now for 6 months she's chosen a a pronoun he. And so then she's now it's 6 months down the road, and she's decided that maybe it's time to transition. And the parent brings that child to a workshop, hoping to get some information to help guide some guidance. What kind of experience would that family have with the theology of the body?
Okay, the parents
Is
would
that a
have
fair question?
yeah, sure. The parents would have a very enlightening experience. They kind of, wow, this is the truth, and it feels so right. So now I understand why she has a problem, and so we have to address it as a problem. For the parents, it is good, but for the child, if the child does not want to change, the child can go to an association that affirms that identity and that tries to change
Right.
the mind of the parents. And there are lots of them here, everywhere, I mean. So, but it's very important at this moment. I am very much devoted to helping parents. They come to me because they don't know what to do with their child, or well, sometimes are grown up children, and I just
Yeah.
help them to deal with it. The way I was taught to by a famous therapist named Richard Cohen, and he always I brought him to Portugal, and we had a series of formation for therapists and priests and all that, and he always said, you have to love them and explain that you are not you don't agree with their lifestyle, but don't forget the two things, and don't use the word but, use and. I love you and I don't agree with your lifestyle, because they have to understand both messages at an equal level. And so that's why I try to explain. That's what I try to explain parents, and sometimes I try to help them change some things on their behavior with the child that can be source of problems. But it's very difficult because parents, it's like we all have this. It's very difficult to say the two messages at the same level. I mean, when we say I love you, we tend to think that I have to agree with everything you say. I don't know if you agree with me, but I had that experience very close to me, and people think that when I say I love you, then they will think that I agree with them. No, 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 no. You love and you don't agree. And this is another thing that the philosophy of John Paul II taught me, is that, and also the work on freedom, on logotherapy and all that, it's that the way you love people is shows how much you love their freedom more than you love the person. You have to love the freedom more than you love the person, which is the way Christ loved me. Because if Christ only loved me according to my good virtues, then I would not be loved.
Right.
So what made him give his life for me was the fact that he wanted to affirm my freedom. That's the most important thing that we have, because it really is what is similar to God in us. It's the freedom, like you said. And that comes from the theology of the body, which I was very impressed with that. And with this
Right. And so
freedom,
the freedom to choose
the freedom
our
to choose,
destinies.
like Christopher West says, between two paradigms, whether I use the other for my own benefit or I give myself to the other for his benefit. And if I keep thinking about these two paradigms in every choice I make when I relate with people, then I am on the right path. I have to understand this. Am I using or am I giving? Am I thinking about
Right.
my happiness, affirming myself? I have reason, I have rights, I have all that, so you have to. Or do I want their happiness? So I want you to be free. I will teach you to be free. I will help you to be free and responsible for your choices. So, and being
And
a parent
right.
is you have to do this. You have to being a parent, you have to teach your children how to use their freedom. Can I tell you a story? It
Sure, please
happened
do.
with one of my daughters, and she was around 7, 8 years old, and she hated to go cut her hair. And that day in the morning, I woke up and I thought, oh, this is the day. So I told her, don't answer. You have the all the day at school to think about this. But today, when I go pick you from at school, we'll go to cut your hair. And she started, no, don't say anything. We'll speak about this again in the afternoon when you come from school. But during that time, you can think how you are going to react to this news. And when I went to pick her at school, and she was very happy and relaxed, and I was surprised. And she said, "Mother, don't you see? Don't you think it's strange that I'm so happy?" Yes. What happened? No, it's just I've been thinking, and I think you are true. You are right. You are right. I have the freedom to choose how I want to feel about cutting my hair. And I was really touched with this because this is the definition of freedom. And she, a child of 7, 8 years
Exactly.
old, understood that. And we don't understand it.
Yeah. And as a parent, it's not that we make our decisions so that our children will like us.
Yeah,
It's we make our decisions for what we think would be best for them,
exactly.
regardless of
Yeah,
whether they like us or not. And
yeah,
that's tricky. You always have to keep that in mind, because uh, you can get mixed up and be tricked into thinking that it would be good if that person did something and it made you feel
yeah,
good or look
yeah,
good or whatever it is, but
yeah.
actually that isn't what you're looking for.
And that's very tricky being a parent, and also at my work as a psychologist. I found out that it would be very easy to have my patients make my ego big. And that was not
Right, right, right.
the goal of the thing. But with our children, I used to tell my children, you cannot stop me from doing my job description as a mother. As a mother, I have a job description and I have to do it. So I don't care if you don't like me or you think mother is bad or whatever. I have to obey to my job description. Of course, we have to have some sense of
Yeah,
humor doing this, right? Because it's
that's right.
difficult. It's difficult, but it's beautiful at the same time.
So when your clients come to you and you talk to them, you're not always going to, like you said, affirm what they are thinking or what they're wanting. So that must be uncomfortable
Well,
at times.
yeah, but at this time, and since I was one of the founders of the Catholic Association Psychologists, everybody knows that I'm Catholic. And when people come to me, normally they are recommended or they are sent by a priest or by a friend, or because they want a Catholic psychologist. So I don't have
I
much
see.
of that problem. Anyway, what I always,
I see.
I don't say you are wrong. I say, what do you want for your future? How do you see your life? Those questions. The questions that
Visionary questions, huh?
put people thinking about themselves, and and also the question of what can you do different, because until now you have been doing this and it doesn't work. So let's see what you can do different from this, and put people thinking. Because that's something I also have from my Catholic culture. I do believe that we all have the same heart, and our heart desires the good and the beautiful and love and justice and all that. So if I believe in that, then I can talk to that heart and help the heart express, you know. I don't know if I'm explaining very well. And there's another
No, I
thing.
get it. So if the
Yeah,
other person, if you're talking from your heart, you can talk to the other person's heart,
yeah,
even if there's a disconnect between what they're
yeah.
saying
But
and
because I believe,
their deepest love.
yeah, but this is because I believe that they are made from the same material I was made, and they are image of God as I
Right,
am. So if I believe in that, it's much easier, I would say, to get in touch with their heart. Sometimes it
right.
has lots of how do you say, the onion things, the covers, and we have to
Distractions. Yeah,
distractions, some things that cover the heart, and we have to pull them out, right? But that's our job, really.
yeah.
It's getting to the ultimate wish of our hearts, and that is God,
Right. Yeah.
the
I
good.
see people as covering themselves with blankets,
Yeah,
covering
that's it.
themselves with
Yeah,
multiple blankets, and you're trying to get
yeah. I'm
through the
trying to do.
blankets
Yeah,
back to
yeah. And I don't
the heart.
necessarily, I don't necessarily speak of God. It's not a catechesis program, right? So what I do is,
Right.
your heart is looking for love. Your heart is looking for good, for justice, and so let's work on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are all good ideas as far as I'm concerned. I would have read the theology of the body, but I think it's about 600 pages or so, isn't it?
It's
It's a long read.
159 catecheses that he spoke,
Yeah,
and each catechesis
I
has
see.
around 3 pages, so it is very long. I normally, when
Oh,
I
I see. It's
start,
more like 1,000.
yeah, when I start a study group, I do 2 catecheses per week, per session, each session, and we take 1.5 years more or less,
And
which
and how long do you meet? For an hour
1 hour, yes,
or two?
1 hour,
One
one
hour.
hour, yeah, because otherwise it
And
it
does
it
everyone speak? Does everyone speak in the study group?
if they want to, and they ask questions and all that, yes,
If
of
they want to.
course, yeah, yeah. I learned that
Is
with
the reading
the.
done before they get there?
No, we read it on site,
Okay.
online, yeah, because people don't have the time to read it, and it really is difficult to read and
No.
understand. So if we read it together,
I see.
it's much helpful. And so I also have prepared the main things I want to say about each catechesis, and so it's easy. And I ask people questions, and I tell them, you don't have to answer, but you have to think about that, and whenever you want, you can answer or not. Just think about, like, how this changes your life. This is a basic, simple question, right? But and the things that are more mysterious for people due to our culture are the differences between men and women. And the one thing I always note is that Pope John Paul II, on almost every catechesis, says some kind of thing like this: the specificity of masculinity and the specificity of femininity. So this is a very big words to say on 129 catechesis. Sometimes he says them twice. Or why? Because he is telling us, be aware, this is so important because you live in a world where these differences are being dismantled, destroyed. So it's so important that he remarks us, tells us the specificity of masculinity and the specificity of femininity. And that made me also study more what he means by that, more than just he means that it's different, but how it different. And it encouraged me to study. That's why I told you I also like to read Edith Stein and to learn about Edith Stein, because John Paul II was a bit influenced by her in her philosophy and in her view, the way she looked at women. And he wrote this letter to women where he speaks about the feminine genius. Actually, he doesn't really define the feminine genius, but it's very clear for me that for him, the root of our difference is fatherhood and motherhood.
Right.
That is the specific of our difference. And being father and being mother are two completely different things. And so there is where we have to go to find the differences to the specific of motherhood and fatherhood, right? So,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah. And I
my
think that,
thoughts.
I don't know, do you think that the confusion that has come up started with the birth control pill?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
think so too. Yeah,
John Paul,
because how could that not be confusing, huh?
yeah, yeah. And Pope Paul VI said that when he wrote Humana Vitae, he said that the church cannot allow this because this is the root for the great problems that were coming ahead. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, people don't understand this, but it's so clear because this is where we separate the body from the person. This is where you
Right.
separate the body as being an expression of the person, where you can have sexual intercourse and you don't say with your body, I love you, totally, freely, as you, in a total, free, fertile, and faithful way, as we were supposed to, right?
Right.
Because I can do with my body what
Right.
I want, and what I think is different. And well, it started there. And let's listen. I say this because I was deeply graced by the mercy of God, because I used the pill for many years, and I discovered theology of the body when I was 40, and I spoke with my priest, and I understood that something had to change. And he was very merciful with me also. And he helped me make the process. And then after a few months, I decided to stop the pill. But it took me months to read the catechesis, to read it, to understand it in a way I could explain it to anybody. That's how stubborn I am. Because I had to really get it in me. And I'm so grateful for I was never drawn away from the church. You know, they never told me you can't do this or you can't do that because you're on the pill. So they all were very merciful with me. The church was like a really mother with me, pointing me the truth, but loving me, right? So I know I had this experience on my life.
Yes. So that must have been. So when you were 40, you'd already gone through your university. You'd already decided to become a psychologist. So you were already practicing in that
Yeah.
domain. But that must
And
have changed everything for you.
changed everything. I remember our first group of study group was with this priest and some couples, and we were reading the catechesis. And one day I asked him, after all, what is the big deal of being homosexual? What's the problem? I didn't understand it. And he said in a very simple way, it's the fact that the body is separated from the person. And I started thinking about that and studying the catechesis and understanding the unity of the body and the person. And that's how I came to understand the problem. But it's that.
I see.
So when I was studying, at first I did not understand.
So I guess my question would be, there's been homosexual men for a very, very, very long time. I don't know how long there have been lesbian women around, but I know that there have been gay men around for a very long time. That isn't a modern problem. It is a modern problem, but it's not only. It's not a modern problem. It's a modern situation, but it's
Yeah.
been this way for a very long time. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not part of the disconnect, the modern disconnect. It's not part, but I don't know where it comes from because it's been around for such a long time. But I guess sinning has been around for a long time. Every time we miss the mark, it's been around for a long time. So, and I do share your opinion that, of course, I'm not born of this age. I was born in the early '60s, so I'm 62 years old.
You're younger than me.
I've been around for a long time, a little bit, and my understanding of the disconnect between the body and the the inspiration that we have from God. My understanding is that for me is to be a mother and to be a grandmother and to serve my family and to serve my husband and to make myself true to my spirit, to fulfill whatever responsibilities come my way, so that's how I feel about things. But there are people who feel differently than me, and it's hard for me to understand how that difference can be a problem, a spiritual problem that hasn't been addressed, if it's a problem or if it's something that is meant to be. I don't know,
Okay. So what I
because it's
think,
an old problem.
yeah, regarding those gender issues and sexual issues, the thing what I think is happening is that there is a kind of a movement trying to end with what they call heteronormativity. So whatever
Right.
is heterosexual is to be cancelled. So sexuality is non-binary. Should be non-binary. Okay. So and we know that the nature is and the reality is the opposite. But we live in dominated by an ideology, and ideology is precisely the opposite of reality. It's an idea that people want reality to fit this idea. And so they write books and they say things and they do and they make laws and all that because reality has to fit in their idea. And regarding homosexuality, what has happened, I think, is that yes, all along we had homosexual people, but now we are promoting homosexuality. So it's getting crowded with those situations, and transsexuality the same. We are now promoting transsexuality, and we don't know where this will end. What will come after?
No,
We don't know. But there are lots of things
no.
that can come. People talk about pedophilia and all that, which is called
Yes, right.
intergenerational sex or something like that. So we
Oh,
don't
yeah,
know.
right.
As long as it is
Right. It's
non-binary,
it's the
it's
promotion
okay,
that is the problem.
and it is promoted. Because at a certain point, and during my lifespan, I saw this. It was a scandal. Then it started to be tolerated, and then now it is promoted actively,
Yeah.
and that is a big problem.
Yeah, so you know that it's something that's been brought in because it
Yeah,
came through that.
yeah.
I see.
Um,
Right. Right. So, so what I've been thinking of is that there's a so if you're joined, your body and your spirit are joined, and there's unison there. There's unity there. And then everything that falls away from that starts to be further and further from this unity. And we're always trying to find that unity, but we fail. We fail because we make mistakes. But they're trying to. It seems like they're trying to erase the unity part of it
yeah,
and saying, "Oh, we don't even need any unity.
yeah,
We can just be whoever we want to be,
yeah,
and forget about forget about striving for unity."
Yeah.
What does that
Uh,
do to a person?
yeah.
What does that do to a person?
Well, I think the person becomes overly dependent on feelings and a
Mm-hmm.
false sense of freedom. Like, I have to do what I feel like is right, what my passions say. They don't say passions, they say follow your dreams in the bad sense, right? Because we can't live out of dreams, we have to live out of reality. So dreams for me, it's always a very complicated word. But that's
Mm.
what it does. It makes the person more and more individualistic, if that's the way to say it. And that's one of the problems of our
Living
culture.
for himself, eh?
Yeah, living for
Mm-hmm.
himself, affirming themselves, and like being disconnected from the other persons, which is completely
Right.
inhumane.
And if you become disconnected from other people, what does that do to you?
It's dehumanization, because you are as a person,
What do you mean?
you are
Mm-hmm.
made for communion in several levels, right? Because you are made for communion,
Yeah.
you are made for get involved in the life of the others, of your city, of your country. And
Right.
when you think only as an individual, you don't have the others. You don't need a country. You just go along as following whatever gives you more pleasure or more money or more power,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Hedonism. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hedonism. Yes.
Right. So
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
not living for
Yeah.
if you're not living to serve, then you're living for hedonism,
Yeah. Yeah.
for short-term gratification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to that by Saint Therese of the little one. You know, there is Saint Therese of Avila and the other one, Saint Therese of Lisieux.
Right. Yeah.
And
The little
reading
flower.
her, The Story of the Soul, yeah, the little flower, that's what really helped me
Yeah.
understand this way of being
Mm.
united, of being integrated, and of serving, which
Right.
is a challenge, because I was educated
Mm-hmm.
at the opposite way, as to be free from attachments, to not to depend on anyone. So, the first thing I had to learn during my conversion process was to accept and to live well with the fact that I depend on my family. That was a very big
Mm-hmm.
trouble for me. I hope they don't hear this. Because it was the first step, because I was really educated for the opposite, for total autonomy and work, work, work. And well, there's a family, but well, who cares? you know? And suddenly
Yeah.
I like it when I understand, when I look at myself and I understand, I depend on him. I depend on my husband. I depend on my children. I depend on my grandchildren. I depend on my family. I depend on my country. That's something
Yeah.
I've been studying
Right.
lately because of John Paul II, and how
Mm-hmm.
Poland survived to
Mm-hmm.
all the ideologies that went there. It was because people were so in love with their country, and their nationality was so important. Their traditions and their culture and the theaters and all that, it was so important.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been studying a bit that, because right now we are also having a kind of a turmoil here in Portugal, because they decided to change our flag without notice.
Oh yeah.
No, and
Oh
so
yeah.
they
Mm-hmm.
transformed our flag into a rectangle, a circle, and a square. And they took all the symbols that we have since the origin of our country,
Wow.
only for ministries and, paper purposes. But they
Yeah.
changed,
But
like,
that's the thing is
make a new
just a
logotype.
little bit at the beginning, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Just a little
so,
bit. Mm-hmm.
where are the things that made our country? The little things. It's important in our
Yeah, that's
culture.
very interesting. That makes me think, people used to be born in a certain area and they wouldn't go far from it. Or even if they did, they'd come back. They'd come back. And now families are spread out everywhere. So the narrative has been be independent, right? Be independent. You can do anything. It's funny because there's a number of narratives. There's also the narrative, for some reason, that you should not do anything and just stay in your basement. So there's that, which isn't a healthy way to
No.
stay
Yeah.
home, right? What you want is to become responsible, but responsible for your parents as they age, and that doesn't mean that you don't become responsible for your community as well and take on as much responsibility as you can, but to abandon your family, because I think there's been quite a bit of abandonment going on,
Yeah.
or at least that's
Yeah.
the way it looks, because everyone is so spread out now.
Yeah. Yeah. And here in at least in my country, but I think it's in Europe, we see lots of old people living alone with no family, and
Yeah,
that is a
yeah.
consequence
Well, I
of
went to
this.
visit my father.
Yeah.
He's very old. He's just about 93, so he's very old. And last Christmas we put him in a nursing home because he was falling down so many times, and we couldn't. Well, he was going to hurt himself, and we couldn't
Yeah.
lift him up. So he's in a very small rural place, which is nice. It's as good as it can get, but you know, it's very tricky to be independent, to take responsibility for your life, but also to be to honor your parents.
Yeah. It is
No,
difficult. Yeah.
really, no matter who they were, really, because
Yeah.
there are so many people in that little nursing home that my dad's in that I don't think are old enough to be there, but I don't think they have anyone. So that's where they are. They don't have any family to go to, and so now they're in an institution, and they seem perfectly they seem perfectly fine, some of them, but I don't think they have anyone.
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah, that is, that's the thing that I was speaking about. We are made for communion. We are not made to live isolated. That's dehumanizing.
right.
That was
Yeah.
what I was, and we live in a very dehumanized world, at least the Occidental world.
Yeah, yeah. So it's it's good for young people to realize that sure, they can go find their way, they can go have adventure, but there are responsibilities they have to where they came from, to pay attention to and
Yeah,
to honor
and to
those
honor, yes, of
obligations.
course, yes. And it's not only a sense of obligations, but it's a sense of love, caring for people,
Love. Yeah,
right?
right. Yeah, service, right?
Yeah,
Service,
yeah,
loving
yeah.
service.
Because I'm okay with, if you need, you can have your parents or grandparents in a nursing house. I'm okay with that, as long as they are not abandoned there. Of course, sometimes we
Right.
have to.
Yeah.
It's normal. And I myself, I wouldn't mind going to when the time comes, as long as I can have my grandchildren come for dinner, or I can go wherever I
Yeah.
want to go. So it's okay. But the problem is the
Yeah, that's
abandonment,
right.
the isolation.
Yeah, isolation. That's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So, well, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about? Is there any burning thing that you want to share with people?
I wasn't really prepared to that question. I think I told more or less my burning things, my burning questions.
Good,
So
good.
I'm okay. I
Okay,
hope
that's
this is
good.
useful for someone. If
I hope so too.
yeah.
Yeah, I hope so too. But I want to thank you for taking the time
Oh,
to come on my podcast. That was very good of you to do so.
thank you for
And
inviting me. Thank you very
my
much.
pleasure.
And
My
I
pleasure.
am long distance accompanying your way into the church, and I'm
Thank
very
you.
glad with that. So next Easter, I will be praying for you also.
Thank you. Well, all these conversations with people who are on a journey also to find
Yeah.
their way with God are helpful to me and my
You know,
journey. So,
yeah, and I try to explain that I also had a late journey, so I was a late convert. So I think that's really beautiful from God that He keeps insisting with us and coming
right? He
for
doesn't give
us.
up, does he?
He doesn't give up, right? That's
He doesn't give up. That's right.
the model of fatherhood that we have to we have to be parents like God is a father for us. Yeah. Don't give up.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Yeah. Well, that's a good closing message.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tammy.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Stay in touch.